I discovered that my wife had been cheating on me with her friend for years. I decided to leave her, and karma made her pay for everything she did to me. I received a message informing me that my wife, Charlotte, had booked a table at a restaurant to celebrate Valentine's Day. This took me by surprise, since I'm usually the one who takes care of those details every year. However, as night fell, the only thing I received was a notice that she had to work overtime. Not long after, I came across a WhatsApp post from her coworker, Matthew, that read, "Only a loving sister knows how to spoil someone. An elegant restaurant, a charming person. Tonight's cake is sweet, but not as sweet as your lips." The image showed Matthew and Charlotte in an intimate pose. She was wearing the necklace I had given her that very morning, and on the table rested the wine I had given her. I immediately recognized the restaurant, the same one where we had shared so many significant memories, including the moment I proposed. On previous occasions, I would have confronted Charlotte at that very moment, but this time I felt too exhausted. When she arrived home, I was eating a mango, something she is allergic to and which we had avoided in our home for years. Somewhat surprised, Charlotte stopped when she saw me awake and almost casually handed me the gift she had prepared, a PCK Fip watch, while saying Happy Valentine's Day, honey. She really always knew how to not only receive, but also give. I said, well, I'm going to bed if there's nothing else. At this, Charlotte, visibly surprised, took my arm and said, Nehanan, it's Valentine's Day. I looked at her, confused, and asked, so what? She frowned, came closer, and playfully whispered in my ear, on a night like this, are you really going to bed so early? She always had a cold and distant presence, ever since graduation. Her glasses only accentuated that intellectual air that made her seem unattainable. But that night, I detected a slight smoky aroma in her perfume. I backed away to avoid her kiss and said, I just ate a mango, you're going to have an allergic reaction. Without further ado, I went to the bedroom, closed the door, and lay down. That's when my phone rang. It was my supervisor asking if I had really decided to accept the new position. If you back out again because of Charlotte, I swear I'll kill you, she warned sternly. I laughed and replied, I won't back down again. If I do, I'll come to you with my head bowed. This position in the advertising department offered a higher salary, but it involved constant travel, something I rejected 3 years ago for Charlotte. As she was always a traditional woman, and I knew she wouldn't stand the instability of seeing each other barely throughout the year. I remember it took me more than half a year to dare to take her hand for the first time in middle and high school. My friends used to say that Charlotte was boring and didn't understand why I had fallen in love with her. I simply told them that she had saved my life, literally. During high school, an earthquake struck our school. In the midst of the general panic, I was ahead of the crowd. I tripped over a desk leg and fell. That's when Charlotte, pushing her way through the chaos and fighting against the tide of people, made her way to find me. She made sure to walk in front and stay very close as we escaped. I just thought that if I didn't make it out, I'd rather die with you. That's how she was, always putting others first. But today, I wonder if she ever imagined that one day she would leave me for someone else. I never doubted her sincerity, although sincerity fades over time. My supervisor must have noticed the tension in my voice. She said, we all make mistakes. It's easier to blame the past than to look for a solution, Nathan. I hope you always have the courage to change when necessary. And with a touch of sarcasm, she added, of course, someone as perfect as me is never wrong, but someone like you isn't perfect, so it's understandable. But whatever happens, even if you lose the woman, don't lose the job. You start in 3 days, and immediately you have a business trip to Argentina. You can't be halfway with this. The next morning, I got up early to go to the office and finish my pending tasks. Meanwhile, in the living room, Charlotte was sitting with swollen lips, probably due to the mango allergy after kissing Matthew during their night out. I walked towards the door, but she grabbed my wrist. In a defensive tone, she asked, why are you angry? It's because I didn't spend time with you yesterday. I told you I had to work overtime. The company is going public, and as a woman, you know how difficult it has been for me to reach management. There are many eyes on me. How could I not set an example? You always said you would support my career, so why are you behaving like this now? For years, I endured her cold and distant attitude, even when she was so busy that she didn't even know I had been hospitalized or when I couldn't communicate with her until one day, picking her up from work while she was putting on her makeup. Her phone rang. She answered quickly and sweetly, and it was the first time I heard her mention Matteo. That's when I realized she wasn't as busy as she said. She simply didn't think I deserved to see that side of her. I pulled away and said firmly, "Enough, Charlotte. It's over." Before I could continue, her phone rang again. She looked at the screen, offered me an apologetic look, and answered, "Sister, come get me. It's so cold today, I don't want to get out of bed. If you don't come, I'll be late and they won't pay me." Almost immediately, her face softened as she replied, "Are you afraid of the cold, the same one who climbs snowy mountains at night?" "Well, Matthew, get up. You're bringing me breakfast today, right?" I couldn't help but laugh bitterly, although inside I felt a mixture of surprise and unease. It was Matthew, sensing something was wrong, who added, "By the way, tell Nathan to thank me. Not only did I dine at his restaurant yesterday, but I also borrowed one of his guys. I assure you that in the future, I'll send him a luxury gift." Hearing these words, Charlotte gave me a guilty look but soon looked away and lowered the volume of her phone. Instinctively, the situation was so absurd that I couldn't help but let out another bitter laugh as I nodded and prepared to leave. However, at that very moment, Charlotte quickly rejected Matthew's call and hurried to catch up with me. It turns out Matthew had a business dinner with a client and he forgot to book a restaurant, so I gave him our reservation. It was all business, you understand. She probably didn't even realize how ridiculous the situation was. But Charlotte wasn't finished yet. Later, when I asked her to prepare some porridge for me because I wasn't feeling well, she put on her coat and, without hesitation, told me Matthew doesn't have any food at home. I'm going to cook him something. I was paralyzed, not knowing whether to ask about her relationship with Matthew or why she was going to take care of another man. But she didn't give me a chance to do so. She shot out the door without even noticing that I was hunched over on the sofa, unwell. Everything was so different from those high school days when, at the slightest sign of stress, I would skip a meal. Charlotte would scold me coldly, but then, carelessly, she would magically appear with a steaming bowl of rice cakes, telling me, "Eat this. You'll feel worse if you don't let me take care of you." Arriving at the office, my supervisor dumped a pile of paperwork on my desk. "Solve all this in 3 days, or come to me with your head down." I worked until late at night, and when I checked my phone, I found a draft of the divorce papers prepared by the lawyer. In the middle of a snowstorm, I took a cab directly to Charlotte's office building. But when I reached the floor where she worked, the lights went out. I frowned and turned on my phone's flashlight. At that precise moment, I received a message from a colleague whose hesitant tone said, "Isn't this the Javi Mar concert you always wanted to go to?" Intrigued, I clicked on the link and came across a post on Matthew's account that recounted all his moments with Charlotte. It turned out that he had known her since high school, followed her to college, and now worked at the same company as her. His bio read, "Falling madly in love with her is not just an exclusive privilege." When I played the video, I understood why my colleague had hesitated to send it to me. In the recording, the concert lights flickered over the faces of Matthew and Charlotte, who were holding hands and kissing passionately in the middle of the crowd. My phone slipped from my hands and exploded on impact with the floor as an indescribable fury washed over me. Charlotte and I had been together practically all our lives, and yet, at that moment, I felt like I had never really known her. Muffled sobs could be heard from her office. Charlotte choked out, "I'm sorry, but we really can't." A male voice timidly replied, You just like me?" "What did I do wrong?" she asked as the young man hugged her around the waist and gently caressed her tear-streaked face. Matthew leaned in to kiss her cheek, his eyes brimming with sadness. I watched helplessly as his hands slid from her waist to the nape of her neck, and in the darkness they shared a long, deep kiss. Suddenly, boom, the electricity came back on and the lights flooded the room. It was then that they noticed my presence at the door. Matthew quickly exclaimed, "Nathan, it's not what it looks like. I'm madly in love with her. It's not Charlotte's fault." Seeing me, Charlotte was stunned, her lips parted and still shiny with tears. In a trembling voice, she asked, "Nathan, why are you here?" I looked at her calmly and approached Matthew. I gave him a smile, but in the next instant, I threw a punch directly at his face. Before he could stagger, I grabbed him by the neck, dragged him towards me, and glared at him fiercely. "This punch is for your pathetic face. I've met many conceited women, but never a pretentious man like you. You disgust me." He tried to reply, but in the blink of an eye, I connected a straight hook to his stomach, making him double over in pain and collapse on the floor. Just when Charlotte seemed to regain her senses and was about to say something, I slapped her too. She brought her hand to her cheek and tears started to well up in her eyes. Coldly, I removed my wedding ring and threw it at her without a second thought, as if it were trash. Upon impact, she burst into sobs, tears rolling down her swollen cheeks. "Nathan, don't do this. Please listen to me," she pleaded. But I didn't give her time to finish. I silently handed her the printed divorce papers and declared, "Charlotte, we're getting divorced." Without stopping, she abandoned all dignity and began to chase me down the stairs. In the distance, I could still hear her voice, "Nathan, please listen to me, it's not what you think." Half the building watched us, embarrassed. I managed to hail a cab. Just as I was about to leave, amidst the snowfall, Charlotte clung to the car door, preventing me from closing it. With an almost pleading expression, she said, "Seriously, there's nothing between us. He's just a boy. He doesn't know anything about life." I interrupted in a cold and dismissive tone, "He's not even a real man, so you're teaching him how to kiss." Her gaze turned red, as if contemplating the wreck of a ship that will never return. Between sobs, she managed to stammer, "Don't look at me like that. Nathan, please don't. We've been together for over 10 years. I can't live without you." Matthew was just an accident, her voice trailing off gradually. Just then, someone shouted from behind, "Charlotte." Matthew went up to the roof. "Hurry." Instinctively, she let go of my grip and turned around. With a scornful laugh, I slammed the cab door shut without looking back. In the rearview mirror, I saw her take a few steps after me, stop, and then run towards the building. I closed my eyes, and when my anger began to subside, a sharp pain in my chest suddenly hit me. It was then that the worried taxi driver said, "Hey, man, are you okay?" I wiped my face, looked away, and remained silent. Arriving home, I started packing my things. It wasn't long before both Charlotte's and my parents called. I thought bitterly, Charlotte is always so busy. She has to calm Matthew down, who was about to jump off a building, and yet she finds time to call both families and mediate. Charlotte and I had been together for more than 10 years. Our bond was so tangled that separating it was much more complicated than for most couples. In the end, my parents simply told me, "Son, we just want you to make decisions that lead you to happiness." I finished packing and opened the door, only to find Charlotte standing there with a devastated face. She looked like a child caught doing something wrong, trembling as she extended her hand towards me and said, "Nathan, please don't go. Let me explain everything." I looked at her in silence, and then she broke down. "I beg you, hit me, scold me, do whatever you want, but don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like that." She clung to my suitcase, desperately trying to prevent me from leaving. "Nathan, we promised to grow old together. Our parents are waiting for us in Bethlehem for New Year's. You can't leave me now. Mom and Dad miss you so much. I sighed deeply and asked in a cold tone, "What do you want, Charlotte?" Almost falling to her knees, she clung to my leg as her tears soaked my clothes. She sobbed uncontrollably, pleading, "Give me another chance, please. I promise I'll do things differently." I didn't answer right away. My gaze fell on an old photograph from our college graduation, which had slipped from the pile while I was packing. Upon closer examination, I noticed something unsettling in the picture. It wasn't just Charlotte and me there. In the background was Matthew, leaning against a tree, watching Charlotte, and his eyes weren't on me, but on her. Had it all started so early? I thought those moments were just between Charlotte and me, but there was always someone else in the picture. Charlotte trembled, avoiding my gaze like a criminal awaiting punishment. To her surprise, I spoke softly, "Okay." She looked up, and in her eyes were reflected disbelief and hope. "Really, Nathan? Are you willing to start over with me?" After a pause, I nodded and unexpectedly added, "Sure, but on one condition." I paused, keeping my voice firm. "Remember that trip to the islands we planned in high school? All these years, we haven't done it. I want us to take a 5-day getaway to the islands." Charlotte immediately agreed, throwing herself into my arms and murmuring, "It's that simple?" I nodded, though deep down I knew that maybe she wouldn't keep her promise. As I reflected, I realized that Charlotte's attraction to Matthew wasn't so surprising. Her life had always been meticulously structured and controlled by her family's rules, from her origins in Beijing, to her move to the capital, to her education and marriage, and even having me as her childhood sweetheart. Her future was already laid out, serene and predictable. But when life feels too safe, it's natural to yearn for intense emotions. Matthew was that whirlwind of emotion, rebellious and adventurous, capable of taking her on night excursions through snowy mountains, keeping her awake all night at concerts, and kissing her at dawn by the sea. It's hard not to succumb to such a passionate love, no matter how reserved you are. Charlotte assured me that after our trip, she would be by my side every day, making sure I never strayed from her, as if she feared I would change my mind. She took care of organizing every last detail of the trip to the islands, excited to finally fulfill that long-postponed plan. Meanwhile, I spent my time scrolling through social media with indifference. Matthew posted incessantly, almost torturing me by sharing his feelings for Charlotte. Today, she couldn't contain herself. He posted something blunt. "The person she loves is me." I couldn't help but laugh, and I responded with my own post. "From now on, I will live on the islands with my wife. The past has vanished like smoke. Today begins a new chapter." I only wished to hold her hand for the rest of my days. Matthew, unable to contain his frustration, asked to see me. We met at a cafe, and through gritted teeth he asked, "After everything, are you really going to forgive her? Are you going to stay with her?" I smiled without saying a word. Then he spat out irritably, "You're really going? Seriously, you're moving to the islands? Why hasn't she told me anything?" Half-jokingly, I left the visa my supervisor had urgently processed on the table and commented, "Charlotte and I have been together for over 10 years. She begged me for another chance, and I told her that if she left everything and went with me, I would forgive her. Of course she accepted." I smiled, but my eyes held no warmth. Furious, Matthew exclaimed, "That's impossible. I've done so much for her." He recalled that she had told me she loved me, and although his anger was palpable, I could sense the pain hidden behind his words. I looked at him coldly, remembering how on Valentine's Day, Matthew had tried to take her away from me. He sent me messages revealing their relationship and let me discover them kissing, all to make me give up on her. What he didn't understand was that my place in Charlotte's heart was deeper than he imagined. His plans had ultimately failed. In a fit of rage, Matthew lunged at me, but what could such a weak man do? I blocked his pathetic attempt with ease, poured coffee over his head, and before he could react, I slapped him so hard it sent him sprawling to the floor. I crouched down, grabbed his hair, and forced him to look me in the eyes. With a contemptuous smile, I called him pathetic. Do you really think Charlotte loves you? Too bad for you. You didn't believe in her love, did you? Matthew's face, full of frustration and resentment, caused such disgust that I fought back the impending nausea. I repeated one last time that if Charlotte decided to come with me, I would forgive her and we would start over. Otherwise, I would never be able to forgive her. Hearing me, his expression transformed, and I could see in his eyes that he understood what my decision implied. At the airport, as snow and rain mingled in the air, I saw Charlotte checking her phone with obvious anxiety, her lips pursed in a grimace of concern. A voice on the other end of the line announced, "Nathan, this time it's different. Matthew has been in a car accident. It's very serious. We can postpone the trip." I watched her silently, scanning every feature of her face, and then I said in a calm voice, "I know very well why you didn't go to that concert with me." She froze, trying to force a smile without success. I remembered that night. It was Matthew's birthday, and despite everything, he had invited me to join him. I couldn't refuse, although between bitter laughs, I reminded Charlotte how important that band was to me, my favorite since adolescence. I always told you that every birthday my wish was to have the means to see them live. I remember how you would get annoyed when I asked why my wish didn't include taking you with me. In a broken voice, I continued, "My wish for my 18th birthday was precisely to enjoy that concert by your side. Don't you remember? But in the end, I went alone. I never imagined discovering you in the crowd, surrendering to another kiss. I even sent you a message during the concert to remind you to eat, and I got no response. To your growing panic and your excuses, I firmly interrupted, making it clear that this goodbye was unrepeatable. You said that attending the concert was mandatory because Matthew had been in an accident, justifying your role as a supervisor. Do you remember that time, when you were 18, I protested about accompanying me on a trip to the islands, and you agreed to go? As you hurried out between the snow and rain to help Matthew, I took off on another flight, bound for Argentina. Hours later, she woke up in the arms of a stranger. Realizing that the man wasn't me, she remembered that Matthew's accident had been a farce. Amidst your confusion, Matthew tearfully begged for one last chance at love, while your mind wavered between him and me, your lifelong companion and husband. With an unsettling premonition, you almost looked for my number, but your dead phone only showed a call from your furious mother. At that moment, you discovered that you had compiled evidence of your infidelity with Matthew and sent a presentation to your close friends and family, ending with a manipulated image of your wedding and a bitter sentence. Desperate, you drove recklessly back home, hoping to find me and fix our mistakes. But when you arrived, the house was empty. My silence and the coldness in the office, where they even refused to confirm my whereabouts, confirmed that my departure had been planned. Over time, you learned that I had accepted a new job with no return and that our story had vanished, as reflected in my last social media post. This country, located 22,000 kilometers from my home, was in the middle of summer, with a golden sun illuminating everything. In Buenos Aires, the streets vibrated to the rhythm of tango, fusing European charm with Latin passion. A business partner invited me to Mendoza, where the vineyards stretched out like an immense green sea under the sun. While tasting a Malbec, my phone rang. Charlotte's hoarse and heavy voice was heard asking, "Nathan, where are you?" I paused for a moment, savoring a sip of wine, before replying from the other side of the world. "What do you want? If you've already signed the divorce papers, send them to my office. If not, don't bother calling." The line went silent, and just as I was about to hang up, I suddenly heard, "I'm sorry." Her sobs reached me, full of helplessness and pain, like a child lost in a crowded store. "Nathan, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Tell me what I have to do, and I'll do it. After more than 20 years together, can you really let it go? How can you be so heartless?" I smiled inwardly, and she must have noticed, because her sobs stopped abruptly. In a fit of panic, she asked, "Nathan, why are you laughing?" I looked down and replied, "You're always like this, so sure that you love me, convinced that if you show me your pain, I'll feel sorry for you. But Charlotte, have you ever considered that I don't love you anymore?" The next time I returned to my hometown, it was New Year's Eve. The problem with childhood sweethearts is that they know each other too well. As my family gathered for the reunion dinner, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, I found Charlotte disheveled, thinner than before, her hair messy and her face marked by anguish. She looked defeated and defenseless. That appearance, coupled with the PowerPoint she had prepared, which had ruined her and Matthew's reputation in their social circles, was almost poetic justice. Charlotte had plummeted, and those who had previously supported her began to distance themselves, disillusioned by the revealed truth. During dinner, I could hear some gossip. I, on the other hand, hadn't spoken to her again since our last phone conversation. That same night, as the streets were lit by the warm glow of homes and fireworks announced the end of the year in the distance, Charlotte looked at me with a face that combined despair and a glimmer of hope. In a hesitant voice, she barely managed to say, "We always spend New Year's Eve together, Nathan. I love you. I really can't live without you." Seeing her, memories of the young Charlotte flooded back to me, that time she snuck out on New Year's Eve and, blushing, gave me a red string bracelet she had woven herself. I thought seeing her again would cause me pain, but surprisingly, I felt nothing. The months I spent traveling the world and discovering new places had changed me in ways I never imagined. The fireworks marked the end of the year, dispelling the long, cold winter and announcing a new beginning. I looked at Charlotte and said, "Charlotte, don't. It's New Year's Eve. Seeing you like this makes me sick." Her face turned pale, and without saying another word, I closed the door. When my parents asked who it was, I just shook my head. No one. I then returned to the warmth of the family dinner, enjoying the laughter and festive cheer. It was perfect. I still had my family. Under my supervisor's supposedly brilliant leadership, my career took off. I quickly adapted to the life of constant travel, sending postcards from each new destination. My mother, who had adopted some internet expressions, affectionately began calling me her traveling bicycle. This time, I was in Japan, heading to a fireworks festival while biting into a mango bun. "Son, be careful," my mother called, always worried. "I've heard that Japan has a lot of earthquakes." I smiled and reassured her, "Don't worry, earthquakes aren't that common." But as if fate wanted to play a cruel joke, the Japan Meteorological Agency issued an unprecedented warning about the Nankai Trough. Return flights were full, and for a time, I became unreachable. My mother, in her anguish, began praying and lighting incense at midnight for my safety. Meanwhile, upon hearing the news, Charlotte bought a flight to Japan. Matthew was still by her side, although he had lost his job and was blacklisted. They were both trapped in a toxic relationship they couldn't escape. Matthew pleaded with her, "Don't be stupid. Even if you go, Nathan won't forgive you. Don't you understand?" But Charlotte wouldn't listen. In her desperation, she grabbed a teapot and smashed it against Matthew's head. Blood gushed from his forehead as he screamed, "He doesn't love you. Don't you understand? I'm the only one who loves you." Without saying a word, Charlotte walked away, leaving him behind. I finally managed to return to my country despite an incomplete flight. Just before takeoff, my old phone received a call from an unknown number, but the flight attendants insisted I turn it off. I did, and the call faded from my mind. Once home, I reassured my family and returned to my work. That was until Matthew showed up outside my office building. He was no longer the confident man he once was, but disheveled, red, and looking broken. "Where's Charlotte? Give me back my Charlotte," he demanded. I watched him through the glass, not understanding how he had gotten to such a state. It turned out that Charlotte had arrived in Japan before the earthquake, and suddenly everything clicked. I remembered that strange call I had received earlier, but I remained calm and asked security to remove Matthew. I told him, I don't care. She's your girlfriend now, not mine. Shortly after, the bad news arrived through Charlotte's parents, who informed my family. According to them, Charlotte had located me at the hostel where I was staying, but when she tried to contact me, she only got a busy signal. Convinced that I was ignoring her on purpose, she decided to follow me, and that's when the building collapsed. My mother, full of sadness, told me the news. Charlotte didn't survive the collapse. She was crushed, her legs destroyed. It's not known if she'll walk again. Cautiously, my mother asked, "Son, are you going to visit her?" I shook my head. No. Charlotte and I have nothing to do with each other anymore. After hanging up, I looked out the window of this new country where I was. What beauties awaited me here? I couldn't wait to discover them. As for the past, yesterday's events fade away and today's are born anew. I hope everyone finds the courage to turn the tables and start from scratch.